Good evening, chat. Good evening. Good evening. Good evening. We are on tonight. We are just got done with Destiny. And now we're moving on to another issue here, chat. And this one, like I said, I brought this up earlier. Do I think this is going to turn out the way we want it to? No. And there's reasons for it. You may like what the law, you may want the law to be one thing. I'm here to tell you, I don't think it's going to be that thing you think it's going to be, which really sucks. But say la vie. Say la vie. Ultimately, I think that Trump will prevail in the merits of what's going on because I think we're running into an Article 2 showdown for um, for the government and the separation of powers issues. But for right now, I think this part is not going to work. So if you guys, that's the TLDR. So if you are new, welcome to the show. My name is Sean, also known as Potentially Criminal. I am an attorney in the Cleveland, Ohio area, and I practice a lot of criminal defense work. But we are here dealing with an appeal. And it's an appeal up to the Supreme Court. And people are seeking an emergency appeal of a stay. And they're seeking the protection of the Supreme Court. And that's what we're looking at here. And who are the parties involved in this right now? Well, it is the President of the United States, Donald John Trump, which, let's be real, that never gets old saying that. I'm not going to lie. Never gets old being able to say that. That he is, yes, in fact, chat, your president. He is seeking to get a stay on an injunction that's been filed. And we're going to talk about why that's a bit of an issue here. So let's see. Hold on, chat. Trying to keep up. Your show looks very Filmer-esque. Jesus. Yes. Well, we're going to get to this anyway, chat. What's going to happen? And as I told you, put not your faith in princes. I just don't think it's going to work out this time. And it's like I said, it's a slight procedural issue. We're going to give people a minute or two to come over because I know there were a lot of people trying to come from me. And well, actually, I assume most people watching the Destiny stuff are just happy Destiny's getting BTFO'd and it moved on. But we'll give it another minute or two before we get started. We are live tonight, all over the internet, everywhere. We are live on Rumble. And if you guys are like, wait, where we are? Yes, it should be up here. I just, for some reason, it didn't set up, but we're taking care of that right now, chat. We're taking care of the Rumble thing right now. We are also live here on YouTube. Obviously, most of you are here. That makes total sense. And then for those of you who are on Twitter, those of you who are Elon's ghost, because that's really how that works on Twitter. There really aren't people on Twitter for the most part. Hello to everybody on Twitter. And that's just because, like, you know who's there. You know who's there, chat. All right. So let's get started. It is time to get started. Commissar says, what's up for Sapporo? Hopefully you guys are getting a lot of snow. And I think there was one of the kick streamers got attacked by a dude with a glass bottle. I think that was up your way. Okay. Any chance of covering the removal of Kathy Harris? Yes. From the Merit Board's Merit Systems Protection Board. Yes, we will. We will. Does Clyde work for Doge? Maybe Doge works for Clyde. Think about it. You want something that'll really split your wig there. Want something? Look, and now they're mad at me because we talked. So we mentioned it, chat. Now they're mad. Like this is not good now. Real quick, just so we have a discussion about it. This is something that was sent to me. I wanted to cover it real quick. We're going to touch on the issues with the Attorney General firings of Eric and the refusal to dismiss the case against Eric Adams, which, as you read into more and more of it, I'm starting to think that, you know what, it may actually be justified, but there's still a way to go. I'm still on the idea that it was unethical, but still legal. Emil Bove, Deputy Assistant Attorney General, put out a pretty based comment here. Acting Deputy Attorney General. He says, I went to New York today to show the men and women of the Justice Department, as well as the American people, I am personally committed to our shared fight ending weaponized government, stopping the invasion of illegal aliens, and eliminating drug cartels and transnational gangs from our homeland. For those at the department who are with me in those battles and understand there are no separate sovereigns in this executive branch, we're going to do great things to make America safe again. He says, for those who do not support our critical mission, I understand there are templates for resignation letters available on the websites of the New York Times and CNN. Ooh, whoa! Ow! It's almost like an Andrew Dice Clay mode. Ow! Oh, spitting super hot fire, chat. Super hot fire. Just like, man, just like he tried. I guarantee you he showed up on the SDNY like a Spectre gunship over an Iraqi wedding. Just, oh, there's gunfire. Like, jeez Louise. Oh, God, yes. And this guy is correct. This guy, Jeremy. Yes, Emil Bove is clearly a unitary executive enjoyer. Yeah. Yeah. And I know people, this is one thing I will say, chat. This unitary executive theory, this has been since the beginning. I mean, Thomas Jefferson buying the Louisiana, he didn't have congressional authority to do it. The power of the president has been expanded from day one. But really, you could see from Truman forward, it's really just... Yes. Yes. But as we're here, we are going to move on, chat. Oh, and Rumble, it's not working. Hold on, Rumble. Sorry, Rumble. Rumble people, it's out there. I'm sorry. We're going to get started. We are moving on to a case that's currently pending. And before we get too far, we need picture time. There's a picture we need to get to. And we're going to start here. This is a guy named Hampton Dellinger. And I am not going to lie, chat. That is a very solid name. I think it's a pretty cool name to have. You know, it's like if you're up in Rhode Island at the yacht club in Providence, you'd hear, oh, Muffy, darling, we're taking Hampton Dellinger out we're going for a sail today. Oh, yes. Yes, make sure the Christopher Cross CD is in the sound system. It sounds like that type of guy. Now, he was involved with Hunter Biden. He was appointed by Joe Biden. Was involved with Hunter Biden. He didn't do coke and fuck hookers that we know of, but was assisting Hunter Biden in a lot of his dealings. So that's who he is. Hampton Dellinger was appointed to head the Office of Special Counsel. Now, before we get too far, it's not the special counsel Jack Smith was. This is a different special counsel. This special counsel is authorized by statute. And this statute is 5 U.S.C. 1211. Okay. And this is Congress passing a law. And this is where we're going to get to. There's going to be some tension and interplay here that there's an Article 2 and Article 1 fight on the horizon. I mentioned this. We covered the Trump stuff last week, chat. There will be a showdown in the halls of the Supreme Court over how far does Article 2 go. And we're going to find out, but we're not right there yet. But we need to talk about who the special counsel is. So the special counsel shall have, an official seal, and he will have his principal office in the District of Columbia. What are some things about this? Now, this is a statute. So they're saying the president shall be appointing him with the advice and consent of the Senate for a term of 5 years. The special counsel may continue to serve beyond that until a successor is appointed and has qualified. Except you can't do it for more than 1 year after the date. The special counsel shall be an attorney who has demonstrated ability, background, training, or experience, is especially qualified to carry out the functions. A special counsel is appointed to fill a vacancy occurring before the end of the term of the predecessor serves for the remainder of the term. They may only be removed by the president for inefficiency, neglect of office, or malfeasance in office. You cannot hold another office in the United States government except as otherwise provided by law or at the direction of the president. So that's what the terms of the special counsel. But what does a special counsel do? Well, there's a couple things a special counsel does. The powers and functions of it. So what do they do? Well, they do investigations. So they protect employees, former employees, and applicants for employment from prohibited personnel practices. They can bring stays. They can demand corrective action from organizations. They receive, review, and where appropriate, forward on to the attorney general or an agency head disclosures of violations of law. So when whistleblowers are involved, any rule, regulation, gross mismanagement, waste of funds, abuses of authority, or dangers to public health or safety. They review rules and regulations issued by the Director of Office of Personnel Management. So you can see there's a lot of things he does here. And anything where there's problems, they operate. And it says, and where the special counsel finds any such rule or regulation would on its face require the commission of a prohibited personnel practice, he would file a written complaint with the boards. He investigates and where appropriate, brings actions concerning allegations of violations of law within the Office of Special Counsel. So what can he do? He can issue subpoenas. He can order depositions. He can order responses to written interrogatories. He can do a lot of things here. He can apply to the Merit Systems Protection Board to enforce the subpoenas in court. He has a lot of authority here, chat, and ultimately he can do a lot of things, including reporting to Congress on his findings. So he has a lot of authority. So that's what the special counsel does. And we're going to move on to what happened. So in February, in this month, February 7th to be exact, on February 7th, President Trump went up to Hampton Dellinger and said, not the president himself, but the Office of Personnel Management, said, "You're fired." And they said, because you are a executive agency, we're firing you. Congress can't restrict us. Remember, there's separation of powers. Congress cannot infringe upon the president's power. President can't infringe upon Congress's power. The courts can't infringe on either, and neither side can infringe on the courts. And they determined he should be fired. Hampton Dellinger then went to the district court in Washington, D.C. and sought a temporary restraining order, also known as a temporary injunction. That injunction was granted for 14 days, and it was granted on February 12th. So it's for 14 days. It's set for a hearing in a week from now. So February 26th, the district court will have a hearing on the temporary injunction. In the meantime, the court has ordered that Hampton Dellinger be put back in his position as head of the special counsel. So what does that do? Well, that means, or also check, can you tell me if Rumble's running? Because it seems like it's not. I want to make sure it's running for everybody. It tells everyone you have to put him back. Now, the president disagrees. Article 2. I have the authority to hire and fire, as we talked about in the case that they're looking to overturn Humphrey's executor. They said, we're no longer considering that valid law. The Supreme Court doesn't like it. We don't like it. Article 2, über alles. The unitary executive theory is something they're embracing, and they're going for the high score. So we then have to deal with the injunction. So what did Trump do? Trump sought a stay of the injunction in the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals. The D.C. Circuit, shocker, I'm going to spoil it, by a 2-1 vote. So 2 judges against 1 said, nope, TRO is valid. Fuck off. 1 judge dissented. Well, where's the next step? The Supreme Court of the United States. So right now, there is a petition pending on this TRO. And where do you get TROs? Well, you get a TRO out of the, and this is all civil law, chat. So with the civil law, what does that mean? We are using the rules of civil procedure. And the rules of civil procedure show you how to get a, let me see here, chat. No, oh, hold on. let me see. Why can't I get... We need to move this back. This is Rule 65 of the Federal Rules of Civil Procedure. So what does Rule 65 talk about? It talks about injunctions and restraining orders. It talks about getting preliminary injunctions. And it talks about a preliminary injunction may be only issued on notice to the adverse party. So that's not what we're dealing with. We're dealing with a temporary restraining order. And issuing without notice, which is what Hampton Dellinger did. The court may issue an ex parte order, as a lot of courts have done so far against the Trump administration, without written or oral notice to the adverse party or its attorney, only if specific facts in the affidavit or a complaint show the immediate and irreparable injury, loss, or damage will result. And that they also have to certify why notice should not be required. Now, here's the thing. It talks about the contents and expiration. Every TRO issued without notice must state the date and hour was issued, describe the injury, why it's irreparable, why it was issued without notice, and promptly filed in the clerk's office. The order expires at the time after the entering, not to exceed 14 days the court sets, unless before that time the court for good cause extends it for a like period or the adverse party consents to a longer extension. So you can always agree to this. But Trump isn't going to agree to it because it's limiting his power. So he's like, fuck you, I ain't going to agree to this. So what do you do then? What do you do if you're President Trump? Well, you're not agreeing to it. And in the meantime, some of you might say, oh, it's only a week. That's 1 week. That's a 14-day window where a Article 3 court, remember, an inferior court, is now infringing on his ability to govern as allowed to him in Article 2. So he went up the chain. We're now at the Supreme Court. And the case is pending at the Supreme Court. If you guys ever want to look it up, you can go to Supreme Court of the United States, and it's case 24A 790. And you might say, why is it 24? It's the 2024 term of the Supreme Court. We're not in the 2025 term yet. So it's Scott Bessent, Secretary of the Treasury et al., meaning everybody listed, as applicants versus Hampton Dellinger, Special Counsel of the Office of Special Counsel. And where did it come from? The lower court, the United States Court of Appeals for the District Court of Columbia Circuit. So we have the filings, and the filings are all in. Supreme Court will issue something very quickly, maybe even tonight, chat, maybe tonight. But from here, we are moving into the actual petition and stay request by the Trump team. Obviously, Scott Bessent, Secretary of the Treasury. So whatever he's going to do, the Orange Man is, they're doing it on behalf of the Orange Man. And the Orange Man is bad. Remember that, chat. The Orange Man is always bad. There we go. Better green. So it's an application to vacate the order issued by the district court and a request for an immediate administrative stay. And it's filed by Sarah Harris, the acting Solicitor General. Remember, the Solicitor General is the person who goes in front of the Supreme Court on behalf of the president. So they're seeking a lot of things here. They're pointing out, and chat, we talked about this before with the TROs. How do you do an injunction or a restraining order in these situations? You have to show 4 separate things to succeed, and Hampton Dellinger has to show all these. He's got a likelihood of success on the merits. 2, there's irreparable harm to him. 3, the equities favor the TRO or the injunction. And 4, that there's a public interest in this. Now, because the government's involved, the equities and the public kind of become one thing, so it's really a 3-pronged test. But you have to show 1 and 2. You have to show a harm, and you have to show an injury. You have to show likelihood of success. Without those, you're done. Now, here's the big point. Article 2 empowers the president to remove counsel at will. We're going to get to that, all right? This causes irreparable harm in the executive branch. This would not prejudice Hampton Dellinger. And no jurisdictional or prudential obstacle prevents this court from granting relief. Now, this is an issue. Guys, typically when it comes to TROs and restraining orders and temporary injunctions and the like, you generally do not have a right to appeal. It's not a final order. It's a temporary order. Temporary orders and interim orders of court are generally things you do not have the right to appeal. You can only appeal final orders typically. There are going to be times where you might be able to get away with it, but generally speaking, like if you had, let's say you had a lawsuit or something pending, whatever state you live in, if there was a TRO filed, you generally can't appeal that up to an appellate court. Hold on one second. Bless you. Love you, babe. Loving 2.0 is having a sneeze attack. So this is it. This is it. This is the issue. That's why I think they aren't going to get it. Do I think in this situation, once again, we are experiencing a judicial coup? People are filing frivolous, baseless, and meritless lawsuits seeking these orders from judges they know who will support their cause to cripple the government and obstruct the president from doing what he needs to do and wants to do. You know, the people out there screaming this is a crisis and a coup. You're right. This lawsuit is the coup. This lawsuit is the crisis. These TROs are the coup. They are the crisis. It's just like in Valkyrie when Major Reimer shows up to Joseph Goebbels' house and he realizes, oh my God, we are the coup. You know, you guys are the baddies. You guys are the dangerous people. So let's get back to it. But that's where we are. As much as I'd like to see it get overturned, I don't think it will. They're arguing it can happen, and we'll see what their argument is. We'll see what their argument is. It's not a bad argument. I'm just not sure. So they talk about the parties proceeding, related proceedings in the district court. If you guys wanted the citation, you can go on Pacer or Court Listener and find all these things. There were things in the district court or in the circuit court. Because initially, upon the first proceeding, they sought the district court or the circuit court to get involved. They said no. And then after they had a hearing on it, they asked the circuit court to be involved. And again, it said no. So that's why you see twice in a couple of days. So we actually see the true thing here. Pursuant to Rule 23 of the Supreme Court rules and the All Writs Act of 28 U.S.C. 1651. Now, I'm presuming that technically this is a writ of prohibition. Or maybe even a writ of you might call it a writ of mandamus, but I think it's probably more of a writ of prohibition, prohibiting the court. They want the Supreme Court to issue a writ of prohibition, telling the lower courts, knock it the fuck off. Like, actually, what you consider this. But they are seeking to vacate the temporary restraining order issued. So as they start off, this case involves an unprecedented assault on the separation of powers that warrants immediate belief. And they talk about citing Trump v. United States, and they're saying Congress cannot and the courts cannot examine the president's actions on subjects when it is conclusive and preclusive constitutional authority, including the president's unrestricted power of removal with respect to executive offices of the United States whom the president has appointed. Remember, chat, that Trump v. United States decision had a lot of fucking teeth. Had a lot of tertiary and secondary effects now. Now, we are going to move on here to talk about a couple other things they cite real quick. In the last 5 years, this court has held twice that restrictions on president's authority to remove officers who serve as the sole heads of executive agencies violates Article 2. In those cases, the single heads of the Consumer Finance Protection Bureau and the Federal Housing Finance Agency are examples of that. They also cite Celia Law, we talked about this one already, and also Collins v. Yellen, meaning Janet Yellen. And they say whatever the agency for the president to discharge his duty to supervise those who exercise duty on his behalf, the president can remove the head of an agency with a single top officer at will. And that's citing binding Supreme Court precedent there. On that basis, President Biden in 2021 fired the single head of the Social Security Administration without cause. Thus, when Trump did it, he engaged in uncontroversial exercise of his Article 2 powers. Since the Carter administration, the executive branch, so since Jimmy Carter, when the special counsel was created, the executive branch has repeatedly viewed the tenure protections for the Office of Special Counsel in 5 U.S.C. 1211B to violate the Constitution. And they point out that this is an executive agency because it's investigative. And prosecutorial decision-making is the special province of the executive branch. And that's entirely the executive power of the president per the Constitution. The OSC operates as a self-described investigative and prosecutorial agency, citing the agency's own thing. Now, they talk about the president's removal power of respondent accordingly implicated two presidential powers: the power to remove and the power to control investigative and prosecutorial decision-making, which the president has. And they said, so within hours of this, and before the government could respond, the district court issued its order on February 10th, labeled an administrative stay. That order restored the respondent to the office from which he was removed, and enjoined any efforts to impede his access to the materials or resources of that office. So it's not like they could just say, fine, go sit in your office. No, they have to let him access his office and keep working. Which you're like, how the fuck? Anyways, on February 12th, the court then issued a 27-page opinion granting the TRO. The court set the TRO for 14 days and specified the hearing on the appealable order would not be held until February 26th. And that's the argument here is people are arguing, well, wait, when the TRO gets put into more permanent effect, you can then appeal it. Right now, it's still temporary because we haven't had a full record developed. So, and they say, until now, as far as we are aware, no court in American history has wielded an injunction to force a president to retain an agency head whom the president believes shouldn't be entrusted with power. Yet the district court remarkably found no irreparable harm to the president if he's judicially barred from exercising his exclusive powers for the presidency for at least 16 days, or perhaps for a month. Courts can extend the TRO up to 28 days. And they talk about the D.C. Circuit issuing a 27-page decision denying relief over Judge Katz's dissent. So we're getting on to the issues here. The Article 2 powers. And we talk about, once again, chat, the challenges and rules have been historically litigated through suits for back pay, not reinstatement. And that's where we get the Humphreys executive. Remember, chat, we talked about this. This is the case in 1935. FDR got rid of the FTC board. And the Supreme Court said, you can't do that. They're quasi-legislative. But remember, the Supreme Court said in Celia law, that's not the case anymore. So remember, it's not just the FTC, but the FCC, the NLRB, the National Labor Relations Board. A lot of boards and organizations and commissions are, like I said, this is going to be a massive showdown over Article 2 this summer. We are going to have SCOTUS. Like, it's going to be, if you're gooning the SCOTUS, you're going to have fun here, chat. Let me tell you what. We will be, we'll be gooning the SCOTUS before this is over. So, especially Kurt Bros, we're going to be doing good. Let me see here. Let me put this, we'll move the chat around here a little bit. Oregon says, and before Fatty's wrong and Trump keeps winning. I hope he wins, but I don't think it's going to happen. So they say this court shouldn't allow the exercise of power, but let's get to the actual thing here. They point out it's an investigative and prosecutorial agency. It's involved in the Civil Service Reform Act. We talked about what it does protecting whistleblowers, the Whistleblower Protection Act. It also investigates under the Hatch Act. It also investigates and protects people under the Uniformed Services Employment and Reemployment Rights Act, USERRA. And that's for people who are currently in the uniformed services. So like if you're in the National Guard and you get deployed, you have protections under federal law regarding your employment and reemployment. So for example, especially in the War on Terror, guys would get mobilized and they get sent off. Like you couldn't just fire them because of that. So they point out the office promulgates regulations, receives and investigates allegations, and brings disciplinary actions. So it does quite a bit. It does quite a bit here. But we're going to get to the arguments here. We're going to get to the arguments of what actually is being done, because that's what matters the most here, chat. So the arguments. The court may vacate a restraining order entered by a federal district court. And they cite a couple of cases. And the court may, and that's the thing here, it says they may. Not shall or must, but it may. This is a case here, which is funny. Jennifer Berner versus the Ohio Republican Party, 2008 case. And that was a per curiam case. They say obtain such relief, the applicant must show a likelihood of success on the merits, a reasonable probability of attaining certiorari. And that's the thing, chat. They will 100% get certiorari here. And I mentioned this before. No matter what happens, whoever loses is not going to let this go. If Hampton Dellinger ends up losing this case, and it's just like the states in Rhode Island suing, or any of the federal workers, any of this communist undermining of Trump's authority, nobody's going to take the L. Trump ain't taking the L either. They'll go to the Court of Appeals. They'll lose. Whoever loses there ain't going to let it slide. And we're going to the Supreme Court. And it's going to be a case the Supreme Court is going to have to hear. These cases will have to be heard. So there's no issue about that. These cases will get heard. Yes, the TDS seething and the TND seething, yes. Yes, it is going to happen, chat. King of Jerusalem, you're asking a good question. We'll get to that. But there is going to be a reasonable probability of attaining certiorari. The president's involved. Article 2. This is going to have to get addressed. And the likelihood of irreparable harm, certainly a massive likelihood of irreparable harm. You're denying him his ability. And they say in close cases, the courts will balance the equities and weigh the harms. These factors support vacator, meaning getting rid of it. So the appellant's likelihood is the most determinative, dominant for emergency relief. And here the likelihood's high. So what is this? And they say first, the precedents are pellucid that Article 2, and that's a $10 word right there, chat. That's a $20 word, actually. Pellucid. That Article 2 empowers the president to remove at will the single-headed agency, such as a special counsel. And yes, I think he does have the authority to do it. I think he does have the authority to do it. He does have that authority. And for those of you who are in Rio Linda, pellucid means transparent or clear. Second, the court's precedents are clear. District courts lack the equitable power to reinstate principal officers. And I think that part's true. I think that's the one thing I think the Supreme Court might do, kind of like a split here. They'll uphold the TRO, but say Dellinger's not in. I think that's how it's going to work. By transgressing both of these, the district court erred in ways that violate Article 2. They say time and time again, the court has held the president has unrestricted removal authority over principal officers. And they point out Article 2 has the executive power vested in him to take care the laws be faithfully executed. Article 2, Section 1, Clause 1. They also cite Section 3 of Article 2. Now, the executive power generally includes the ability to remove officials. And they said, otherwise, the president cannot be held to fully accountable, discharging his own responsibilities. The buck would stop somewhere else. As Harry Truman once said, the buck stops here. It stops at the top. They say the president's power to remove those who exercise the power on his behalf follows from the text of Article 2. It was settled by the first Congress, has been confirmed by this court many times. Yes, it has. Thus, the president's to remove may not be regulated by Congress or reviewed by the courts. Applying that rule, the court has held in recent years, the president must be able to remove a sole agency head at will. As a general matter, the Constitution scrupulously avoids concentrating power in the hands of any single individual, save for the president, who is the most democratic and politically accountable official in government. Agency heads must be accountable to the president through at-will removal, and that's true. And they say there are only 4 single agency heads upon whom Congress has sought to confer tenure protection. The head of the director of the Consumer Finance Protection Bureau, CFPB, the Federal Housing and Finance Agency, the commissioner of the Social Security Commissioner, and special counsel here. The former 3 are undisputed, subject to at-will removal under Article 2. The court's precedents foreclose any special exception for the special counsel. So basically, as Trump said, yeah, you said all this. Congress has sought this, and Congress is like, the president's like, nah, fam, I ain't playing that game. Now, once again, chat, we talk about this case, Celia law or Sila law. It's coming back to that. This court held that Congress had violated Article 2 by granting the tenure protection that's for a sole agency head. And this was against the Consumer Finance Protection Bureau. The director was neither elected by the people nor meaningfully controlled by someone who is, if Congress is in charge of it. And they say when no colleagues persuade and no boss or electorate look over their shoulder, the director could unilaterally dictate and enforce policy. True. Congress then extended the at-will removal to the single head of the FHFA because it's led by a single director. The court rejected the contention that it should be treated differently because it exercised less executive power. And they said, no, it doesn't matter. The nature and breadth of the authority is not dispositive, and that's true. They talk about how this goes, and it keeps going here. They say, in short, Article 2 empowers the president to remove the head of an agency with a single top officer. And they even cite Justice Kagan concurring in part and concurring in the judgment. They have Sotomayor saying any agency led by a single director, no matter how much executive power it wields, now becomes subject to the requirement of at-will removal. Sotomayor concurring in part and dissenting in part. So, yeah. Yes. And they say after Collins, Biden removed the head of the Social Security Administration without cause, contrary to statute. I guess that was a constitutional crisis all along, wasn't it? Nobody said a word about that one. Shocker. Oh, no, chat. Oh, no, legal bros. Oh, no, law Twitter. In supporting that decision, the Office of Legal Counsel explained the best reading of Collins' Celia law means the president need not heed the commissioner's statutory tenure protection. The only courts of appeals that have considered the question, the 9th and 11th circuits, have both held the statutory restrictions on the removal violate Article 2. Even the 9th Circuit's like, yeah, I don't think you can do that. I don't think that works. As I said, chat, I think ultimately, yes, Trump will be victorious in removing Hampton Dellinger. But I think the court's going to be like, no, this has to go back down. And I think they're going to try to hint, district court, you should unfuck this. Yes, 11th Circuit for the win. $1 Million Dick says, didn't Clinton remove a ton of attorneys? Firing U.S. attorneys is within the sole discretion of the president. You could fire every U.S. attorney in the Justice Department tomorrow because U.S. attorneys are not confirmed. They're confirmed positions. The U.S. attorney gets confirmed by the advice and consent of the Senate. So the U.S. attorneys are confirmed. That doesn't mean the underlings, the assistant U.S. attorneys, but the actual U.S. attorney for each federal district. They can be dismissed at will. Nobody's ever challenged that. I think Obama even did it too. He smoke checked a ton of people as well. They say casting a special exemption would plainly contravene these precedents. They say that the special counsel undoubtedly wields executive power. It does. Yeah, special counsel is an investigative and prosecutory agency. Civil Service Relief Act, the Whistleblower Act, USERRA, and the Hatch Act. So they talk about what they can do, as we mentioned, they issue subpoenas, taking depositions. They can enforce multiple statutes by bringing disciplinary actions and litigating complaints before the Merit Services Performance Board. Or the Merit. Oh God, what is it called? The MSPB, the Merit Systems Protection Board. Yeah, that was a stroke brain there. Sorry, chat. The Merit Services Protection Board. That's another agency Trump just went ahead and went snip, snip, snip to the head of it. So that one's legal. So we're going to move on here, chat, because they're talking about what you can do here. And I do think that Article 2, they're allowed to remove him. It's just, is this TRO something that can happen? And that's like I told you, I think there's an issue. They point out he has no right to reinstatement. The district court defied the court's remedial precedents as well. Says the court can't enjoin the president. And they said this court recognized long ago the court has no jurisdiction to enjoin the president in the performance of his duties, going all the way back to Mississippi v. Johnson, 1867. They also cite a case Franklin v. Massachusetts, saying Scalia concurring in part as well. Base Scalia. And they say the injunction preventing the firings of people, thus controls how he performs his duties, is virtually unheard of. Yet the district court order necessarily enjoins the president from removing special counsel or for appointing anyone else. And that's the thing, nobody else can be appointed. By directing that Dellinger shall continue to serve, and the defendants may not recognize the authority of any other person as special counsel. And that's something he's not allowed to do. That's why I think the TRO is going to get smacked down. In the regards of, the court's going to they're going to be told, like, you need to let this go, man. But ultimately, they're not going to be able to do that. But the court's going to I think they're going to give them a chance to fix that. But we'll see. We'll see. If they go all out and do it, that's fine. I support the action. I think it's legally justified and supported. But I see the court being a little cautious about it. That's all my concern is. Courts are institutionally risk averse. And they like to take their time. And they say the Court of Appeals sought to point that problem by interpreting the term defendants to refer only to the other defendants, but not the president himself. And they said, but that is no answer. And I agree. And that was what the circuit court did. It's like, well, the Secretary of the Treasury, Scott Bessent, it doesn't apply. It's like, what does a cabinet secretary do? The bidding of the president in Article 2 power. So really chicken shit option by those judges in the D.C. circuit, but they did it. They say whether the order is expressly directed at the president or not, this court's precedents reinforce the notion courts lack power to issue any order reinstating a principal officer that's been removed. When these challenges have happened, they traditionally sought back pay, not reinstatement. People have, Weiner versus United States. So Mr. Weiner sought recovery of his salary. Humphrey's executor, it was sued to recover a sum of money alleged to be due for salary for the FTC board. They talk about Myers for his salary from the date of removal. A suit for salary, for salaries and fees. This rule also reflects the obvious Article 2 problems that arise if a court attempts to reinstate an officer removed by the president. The president cannot be compelled to retain the services of an officer he no longer believes should be entrusted. Yeah, that's true. And they talk about, indeed, many of the first members of Congress argued against requiring the Senate's advice and consent for removals, precisely because of the risk that such a procedure would require the president to retain someone he'd sought to remove. And they said, and as one representative said, if the Senate upon its meeting were to acquit the officer and replace him in his station, the president would then have a man forced on him whom he considered as unfaithful. And they say another representative argued, but suppose the Senate shall decide in favor of the officer. What a situation is the president then in, surrounded by officers with whom, by his situation, he is compelled to act, but in whom he can have no confidence. And they point out this exceeded the scope of equitable powers. And they say the court may grant those equitable powers that were traditionally accorded by courts of equity. And guys, remember, this is a traditional thing. You have courts of law and courts of equity. And you had to go to the right court for the right redress. And they operated independent of each other. You still kind of have that, like there's some way the law is done in some states. But in a lot of states in most of America, your courts are now combined. Courts of law or courts of equity. They point out the reinstatement is not such a remedy. And they say it's well settled that a court of equity has no jurisdiction over the appointment and removal of public officers. Supreme Court, once again, chat, when you see cases cited with just U.S., that means Supreme Court precedent, going back to 1888. They say instead the jurisdiction to determine the title to an office belongs exclusively to courts of law. And they say, for instance, through suits for back pay. And they say, thus, the power of the court equity to restrain has been denied in many well-considered cases. And they say, to be sure, Congress has sometimes departed from that equitable tradition. It's empowered courts to award reinstatement. And they say under Title VII of the Civil Rights Act, empowers the court to grant reinstatement as well as back pay for employment discrimination, which does happen. And they say respondent cites no statute that authorizes a court to reinstate a special counsel who claims to have been wrongfully fired. And it says the court may not accordingly grant such a remedy. The creation of new remedies is a legislative endeavor. And that's true. If you're seeking a new remedy, something you're not entitled to under the law, the court can't invent that. That is the job of the legislator. And they say courts of equity lack the power to create remedies previously unknown to equity jurisprudence. And that's the other thing here. There isn't a remedy unknown to equity jurisprudence. Like giving his job back, that's not an equity. Nobody would want that. We don't do that. And these principles apply even to the removal of municipal officers. And they apply all the more to the presence removal of an executive officer. So they point out there, those are the issues. And they say, they point out the other factors support relief. What are the other factors here? Because we need to move on to Dellinger's response. Tim the Tool says, I accept value for value. Yes. Did you attack it? Is this a tacket admission? So they point out that the Court of Appeals holds the president may not remove special counsel at will. That decision would warrant this court's review. The court has on several occasions granted certiorari to review the restrictions on the president's power to remove executive officials. Yes. And they point out the court has recognized the importance of removal as a tool of supervision, identifying as a key means of preserving the executive branch's dependence on people. And they say the expansion of the bureaucracy into new territories the framers could have scarcely imagined only sharpens the court's duty to ensure the executive branch is overseen by a president accountable to the people. So they talk about how this goes here, chat. And they talk about this court has appropriately been receptive to reviewing cases, whereas the executive branch at its highest level is seeking aid of the courts to protect its prerogatives. And you see there's a Cheney case, so Dick Cheney from 2004, Clinton v. Jones in 1997. The president sought to remove an agency head only to be thwarted by a district court. Yes. And as I said before, chat, this will be the courts destroying their own integrity, destroying their own reputation and faith in the community. They will destroy their own, they will destroy themselves because the orange man is bad. And it's sad to see it. They say the reinstatement causes irreparable harm. Well, they say a single district judge is forcing the president to continue allowing a principal officer to exercise executive power and the president believes he shouldn't. That sort of harm to the separation of powers into our democratic system is transparently irreparable. Yes, chat. The constitutional crisis. It's happened. We're in it. These people are jeopardizing the constitutional framework. And yes, I hope these people get sanctioned and punished for their unlawful and frivolous cases. And they say the president must retain an agency head against his will. It doesn't allow him to implement his agenda. And not only can the district court reinstate an agency to exercise power without accountability, without, for instance, the threat of removal for unwise enforcement or investigative decisions or rulemakings, they also control the hiring, firing decisions for subordinates. It's an agency of over 100 people. And he's lost the ability to implement his agenda. And it's an affront to his Article 2 powers. The district court, and it says the district court fault the government failing to identify circumstances that require the president's hasty, unexplained actions, or that would justify the immediate ejection of the Senate-confirmed special counsel. That reasoning just attacks the notion of removal at will. The president may remove executive officers for many reasons. If they're negligent and inefficient, those who exercise their discretion in a way that was not intelligent or wise, those who have different views of policy. Yeah, I want to do A. You want to do B? You're fired. Those who come from a competing political party and those in whom he has lost confidence. Yeah, there's any and all reasons. That's what at-will employment is, chat. Just not an illegal reason. It says the president may remove officers simply because they want to appoint someone else. And that's a valid reason. The power to remove executive officers may not be regulated by Congress or reviewed by the courts. And then once again, they cite the Trump case. And they say that district court believed the executive branch did not face significant harm because OSC has a narrow focus. But the court understated the extent of the council's powers. As noted, he can appoint people, he can promulgate rules, launch investigations, issue subpoenas, discipline people, and represent the government in court and before the Merit Systems Protection Board. They say because of this court order, he may now do all those powers with no loss, with no boss, peers, or voters to report to. And more fundamentally, the court is never presumed to determine how much of the purely executive powers of government must be within the full control of the president. Nobody's ever, they said it's not for us to determine that. The Constitution prescribes they all are. And that is Antonin Scalia in a dissent. And that's a very powerful thing here. That's a very, very important thing. A very important thing here. It's all your power. The unitary executive. So, and they talked about the limited duration of the order, which is set to expire on the 26th, which is nonsense. Tracy said, why did Justice ask to have the papers by today? Because this is an emergency issue. We need an answer, like, right now. Like, we need an emergency. Like, this is an emergency thing. The Supreme Court doesn't want to fuck around with it. Like, we can't drag this out 6-7 months. We got to answer it right now. It's an emergency order. It has to be resolved. So, like, it's got to get done. That's a very good question, though, Tracy. Why did it do that? Because it has to be done right now. It has to be done right now. There's no time to wait. There's no time to wait. And because it's the D.C. Circuit, the Chief Justice rides circuit here, and it came to him, and he ordered them due by today, and it was turned in last night. So there's a bunch of amicus curiae, friends of the court briefs that have been submitted. We don't know all those things yet, but that's where we are. Hodor says, like they want to reach it. Yeah, I mean, it's an interest thing, but the court's like, we probably need to look at this. And I think, and Mario, you may disagree with me. I think they're going to split the baby here. I think they're going to put something out that kind of hints like, you guys need to fucking dismiss this. Don't do this shit anymore. But I also think they're going to say you can't force Hampton Dellinger back into position. So they're going to say the remedy's wrong, but the TRO, they're going to kind of hint it needs to go away. That's what I'm kind of thinking is going to happen. So we'll see. We'll see, though. The executive needs to exercise powers, not be stuck in limbo. I agree. I think there's fair room to disagree. Here's the thing. If I was on the Supreme Court, I'd say TRO gone, Dellinger out, Article 2 uber alles. I would say that right now. But I'm not Supreme Court. And I'm just trying to temper expectations. But yeah, but if they don't reach it, I think you're absolutely right. Yeah, I think it's going to be a combo. And remember, chat, I know other people out there have said what they want it to be. I'm trying to tell you what I think it's gonna be. I could, I know somebody else already done a video today saying like one touch of an armored sleeve and we'll mow him down. I don't think it's gonna be that easy. I don't think it's gonna be that easy, but I hope it is. I hope it is. I hope tonight the Supreme Court issues an opinion, 9:00 tonight, and there's just a felting. But I don't think it's gonna happen. So we're gonna keep going here. But yes, they say the applicants have not identified any harms to themselves or the public. I don't know. The public's ability to have their duly elected president do what they fucking want seems pretty fucking hard. That's a pretty big harm. And yes, just waiting 2 weeks. Well, Hampton Dellinger could have waited a couple weeks to get his thing heard. But exercising your Article 2 prerogatives is not so prejudicial to the government's interest. Listen to them, chat. Oh, it's no big deal. Once again, I mentioned this, and I know Mario was here for it. These guys are going to fuck over the ability to have restraint TROs filed in the future. That's ultimately what's going to happen with these cases. As Clarence Thomas said, we tire of this bullshit. And eventually the court is going to tire of this bullshit. They won't do it right here, I don't think, because that's too sweeping of a remedy. But when this case does the normal track to the Supreme Court, the Supreme Court's going to say, this is fucking over. This rationale ignores the direct harm the court's order causes the Constitution means of ensuring democratic accountability. The president is elected for 4 years with the mandate of the people to exercise his power. Yes. And I think that's a very good point. A very good point. Indeed, the history underscores the president of the nation's interest in prompt execution of removals. The framers deemed an energetic executive essential to the protection of the community against foreign attacks, the administration of law, the protection of property, and the security of liberty. Accordingly, they chose not to bog down the president with habitual feebleness and dilatoriness. And that means like dilatoring, like you're dilly-dallying, chat. That's where that comes from. And it comes with a diversity of views and opinions. Instead, they gave the executive decision, activity, secrecy, and dispatch that characterizes the proceedings of one man. Yeah, I agree, Mario. It's a close call. It's going to be a close call. But if, like I said, if we win, it'll just be, I'll get the Alex Jones. I'll have the champagne going, chat, just like Alex Jones. Just not yet. Just not yet. Consistent with the history, the court has recognized sudden removals are sometimes necessary. U.S. v. Jermaine, like Jermaine Jackson? So in Myers, the court cited the prospect of delay as one of the reasons for holding that Congress cannot require the Senate's consent for removal. To require the president to file charges and submit them might make it possible that unity and coordination in the executive administration essential to effective action. And they also point out this is irreparable harm to the Office of Special Counsel. Because private parties may be entitled to a remedy when an unconstitutional removal restriction inflicts compensable harm. For instance, if the president had attempted to remove an agency head but was prevented from doing so, the removal restriction would clearly cause harm to affected individuals. Thwarting the removal, the district court has arguably exposed every action by the office to legal challenge. And that's true, chat. So let's say I'm the head of an agency and something happens, or there's subpoenas that get issued. Let's say the special counsel issues a subpoena. Guess what I'm going to do? If I'm the attorney, I'm objecting. I'm motioning to quash the subpoena. You don't have authority. Your own boss says you don't have the fucking authority to do what you're doing. If I'm the agency head, we want a subpoena. Fuck you. This person's not entitled to the actions they're doing. Oh. So this further provides a reason on the prospect of mass invalidating everything done by Hampton Dellinger by this court-ordered and insulated tenure. So let's say it takes a while. Everything he does is up for debate. It's Gonski. And that prospect, hold on, where are we? Hold on here. The courts claim the order is necessary to avoid a gap in protections avoided by the office. Yeah, it vitiates that. This is fucking retarded. No, it doesn't. This would not prejudice the respondent. Granting the government relief would not cause any irreparable harm to Dellinger. Although the removal deprives him of salary, those consequences ordinarily do not amount to irreparable injury, however severely they may affect the individual. So the traditional remedy for those claims has been awarded back pay at the end of the case, not interim reinstatement. And the district court, the removal irreparably harms him by depriving the ability to perform his functions and fulfill his obligations. But this court has rejected that reasoning too. Although a public official's loss of salary amounts to a cognizable harm, the loss of political power does not. And that public officials have a separate private right akin to property interest in the powers of their offices is alien. And that's true. You don't own that. You're the Secretary of Defense. You don't have a right to that power. It was given to you through the Constitution, through the president. It's the president's power. The president has put you in a position and he has bestowed upon you authority to do his bidding. If you're not doing his bidding, he will retrieve that power from you. Just like a child with a BB gun. It's not yours. The child can have the BB gun taken away. if it abuses it or it's not doing it properly. So there's a Yasuki simulator funny. But and yes, in chat, here we go. The DC Circuit 1984, bork. You ever heard the term getting borked? Judge Robert Bork. Aside from learned hand, Robert Bork is probably one of the most intelligent and well written judges that never made it to the Supreme Court of the United States. Robert Bork was the fucking G. Robert Bork's downfall, though, was at his confirmation hearings for the Supreme Court in the 1980s. They asked his opinions on things, and he gave his opinions. And he was denied confirmation. That's why you see now when anyone has been nominated for the Supreme Court, they say, Your Honor, I would follow, Mr. Senator, I would follow precedent. I believe that this is the law. And that's why you get all these non-committal answers, because Robert Bork got fucking murdered. It was a hatchet job by Joe Biden and others. So, Robert Bork was a G. Now, this is the biggest part here. And we're going to move on to Dellinger's arguments. Learned hand was robbed. Yeah. Yes. If you guys didn't know, and I mentioned before, there is a famous circuit court judge, Learned Hand was his name. Yes. Also, dogs go bork. They go bork, bork, bork. He says no jurisdictional or prudential obstacle prevents relief. They say that the appeals court lacks jurisdiction to hear the government's appeal and lack power to grant relief. They say that's meritless. There's no obstacle to the Supreme Court granting the application. And they say, first, whatever the scope of the court's appeals jurisdiction, the All Writs Act empowers this court to grant relief. And I think that's where the court, if they are going to argue it, this isn't explicitly, and here's the thing, where they're seeking vacator from this, they're seeking the vacating of it. I don't know, and Mario, I don't know if you know this. Technically, would you write in here, I'm seeking a writ of prohibition, an application for a writ of prohibition to the Supreme Court of the United States? I think you have to do that. But I don't know why they didn't list it as a writ of prohibition. Because if it's just a writ of prohibition, that actually would be something you could do to challenge the court. And maybe that's how the court's going to do all this. And if that's how they're going to do it, great. Writ of prohibition, you can't do this. But I think the court's looking at this as they're asking for the TRO to be vacated as like a stay. Okay, you agree with me. And this is part of the reason why I don't think we're going to get what we want out of this. It's kind of fucked they didn't, and I would have called it mandamus. Yeah, I could see in chat Matt Damus, not Matt Damon, and not Mandingo, mandamus. But yeah, writ of mandamus, yeah. It's an original action. Maybe SCOTUS practice it for it to be styled like that. Maybe. But that's the thing, because it cites the All Writs Act. I'm assuming they're kind of like, look, we're asking for writs here. We're asking for mandamus for prohibition. So who knows? But I agree. In Massachusetts, it's the writ of Matt Damon. Oh my God, I hate you, chat. I hate you so much. But yes, it could be. Maybe that's the thing. And here's the issue, chat. The Supreme Court has its own way they do stuff that's alien to everybody. Even the way you have to submit a brief. Like if you submit things, it has to be done in a certain way, and it has to be bound, and you things have to get sewn together, and you've got to do shit like this very asinine way, like it's 1807 again. So maybe they're throwing shit at the wall, hoping something sticks. Yeah, I think that's what they're doing too. But yeah, we'll see. We're gonna move on though. Thank you for. See, I like how there's somebody can bounce stuff off there in chat. And chat, I'm not saying you're dumb. You are a very smart chat. But it helps when you're kind of like, I was reading through this earlier, and I'm kind of like ruminating, like, how would I have done this? So, the lack of clarity shows they know they're kind of shopping it to the Supreme Court. Yeah. They're trying to shop it out they're trying to workshop it. Makes sense. I just did a mandamus recently, is why I'm on this kick. Oh, well, there you go. Well, that's the thing, chat. When you're in court, you win on something, you're like, can I use this anywhere else? I have this hammer that I know works. And you're like, can I use it in this situation? You're like, maybe. And you try it and it doesn't work. You're like, fuck. So, oh, so let's keep moving here. So where are we at? So, yes, they talk about, we're unaware of any previous case in which the court has ordered a reinstatement of a single agency head after removal by the president. At most, a district court in 1983 effectively reinstated removed members of the multi-member U.S. Commission on Civil Rights because that court believed the commission functioned as a legislative agency whose only purpose was to find facts which could subsequently be used as a basis for legislative or executive action, not to exercise any executive power in its own right. And he says that is no support for the district court's unheard of decision for an executive agency from the president, and assists the agency must be fired to keep the Article 2 powers. Oh, and oh shit, I thought we were down there. So yeah, they're just saying there's a lot of options here, chat. They also point out the All Writs Act authorizes the court to review the lower court's interlocutory orders. It also authorizes the court to vacate or stay such orders. When maybe that's where they get away with this. Justice Rehnquist, 1976, chat. Yes, he was there though for a long time. So the second, the Court of Appeals had jurisdiction over the government's appeal from the district court's order, and they talk about 28 U.S.C. 1292. Congress granted the Court of Appeals jurisdiction for appeals granting injunctions. Yeah, but I think here, yeah, and they said the court, to be sure, labeled it a TRO rather than an injunction, but the label attached to an order is not dispositive, and that's true, chat. And that's also the case when you file a motion. Just because you write on it, I want X, or I'm asking for X, or I'm trying to do X, and you ask for something else, the court takes you at what you file, not the titling and the captioning of something. So, where the order is practical effect of granting or denying the injunction, it should be treated for purposes of appellate jurisdiction. We'll see. We'll see. So, the practical effect serves a valuable rule. If an interlocutory injunction is improperly granted or denied, much harm can occur by the final decision of the district court. True. They say Congress authorized interlocutory appellate review of such orders. But if the availability of interlocutory review depended on the term injunction or some other language, Congress's scheme could be frustrated. So the district court's order of the label of TRO is the practical equivalent of a preliminary injunction. They have the same elements, chat. Remember, we've talked about this before. An injunction and a TRO have the same elements that you need to prove to get it. The court issued that order after having already issued the administrative stay, which the respondent has conceded itself as effectively a TRO. And this is in the court of this is the other opinion that was out there. The court reviewed an adversarial briefing before issuing the order, which is sufficiently extensive. The court invited the parties to deem the motion in support of the TRO to be a memorandum in support for preliminary injunction. And then, with the opposition and reply similarly designated. And the court's order causes extraordinary harm to the president's authority to oversee the executive branch. And they say, okay, now, moreover, this case more involves the president, or in some cases, the vice president or former president, is often able to obtain immediate appellate review that would be unavailable to ordinary litigants. And that's true, chat. And that's why the Supreme Court's going to do something with this. They're not just going to kick it down. They're going to make decisions here. We're going to find them quickly. I don't even think we're going to get to oral arguments. That'll be very interesting, though, because one of you guys has tipped me off because I didn't get the chance to read Dellinger's thing. Somebody who shit the bed their first time in court here is going to be in there. So they talk about Nixon v. Fitzgerald. And they talk about the ruling on immunity from civil prosecution. And they say the president recognized that interlocutory review is sometimes necessary to safeguard important interests. And the Article 2 things here. And they talk about in Trump with Justice Barrett concurring. So they say, finally, the government asked the Court of Appeals for a writ of mandamus. And that's why we're doing it as a mandamus. So, Mario, you're right. It's a mandamus. I didn't get this far. I kind of ran out of time today. The district court's extraordinary order readily satisfies the standard for relief. Even though I still think they're wrong. I think actually it's a prohibition because you're seeking prohibition. You're stopping the court. But yeah. Yes. I'll explain sometime why it's a nerdy thing, I'm sure. Uh, if it was proper to treat the court as an unappealable TRO, the government would have no other adequate means to obtain the relief it desires. And they say, given the clarity, the government's right to leave is also clear and indisputable. And mandamus is appropriate under circumstances because the district court's actions threaten separation of powers. And they go on here, they talk about everything, and they're asking for it to be overturned. They want to vacate. They want an immediate administrative stay pending the consideration of this application. So this was submitted. And the second one, response to all of this, you have the Supreme Court of the United States, and once again, chat in its fancy font. Remember, this is Supreme Court rules. You have to use the fancy fonts. You have to do all this. Pomp and circumstance. Hampton Dellinger's opposition to the government's application. So a couple of different people here. And he's got counsel for Special Counsel Hampton Dellinger. One of you guys told me Chase Strangio was in this. Is Zezer involved in this? Because that's the safest way to fucking lose. Because Chase Strangio went for the Supreme Court and fucking shit the bed. That was an awful fucking showing. But yes, let's see what the opposition. Remember, chat, the enemy gets a say in the gunfight. So, the founding mission of the U.S.C. we don't care about the procedural history. Blah 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 blah. You know, this court isn't. Let's start with, and we're going to start with the unlikely to review reverse. All Democrat lawyers are Chase Strangio. Well, some of them are halfway competent. Never assume your enemy's incompetent. You do so at your own peril. Do so at your own peril. It's never a good idea, chat. Once again, we start off with an orphan. Don't do widows and orphans, chat. Control-Enter, keep the pages clean. God, this shit irks me so bad. It irks me so bad, chat. All right. But as per Supreme Court style guidelines, justified, which is God's alignment. So the court is unlikely to review the TRO holding. And it said, in addressing the likelihood of success on the merits, the government focuses on primarily questions of constitutional law. As they should. As they should. As they should. Why shouldn't they? Whatever. Only grudgingly at the end to brief remark on jurisdiction. But as the D.C. Circuit held, the jurisdictional inquiry is the central one. And the government has failed to carry its heavy burden, demonstrating the short-lived TRO is immediately appealable. And they talk about lack of, denying jurisdiction here. They said, subject to limited sections, appellate courts may only review final judgments of district courts. 28 U.S.C. 1291. Congress set forth one such exemption when it said over interlocutory orders of district courts granting, continuing, modifying, refusing, or dissolving injunctions or refusing to dissolve or modify an injunction. By virtue of this restriction to injunctions, the general rules and orders granting, refusing, or modifying them are not appealable under 292A1. They say, whereas orders granting or denying preliminary injunctions are appealable as of right. So they're arguing it doesn't say temporary here. So they're saying, it's not there. And guys are using Wright and Miller. Wright and Miller is kind of like the federal practice and procedure Bible for civil procedure attorneys, for civil attorneys in the federal system. Wright and Miller is like daddy of that's what everybody uses. That's why it's being cited. It's the king shit. Kathy, hello, Kathy. Kathy, your realtor in Jersey, says, "Hi all, you want to hit the like button?" Yes. Remember, chat, Kathy is your realtor in New Jersey, not in the British island of Jersey. There probably wouldn't be many houses to sell there. But yes, guys, if you need an attorney in Jersey, hit Kathy up. It says, to be sure, a district court cannot shield an injunction from appellate review merely by labeling it a TRO. They're saying, oh, well, we agree. But the interim injunction is limited to the short time frame, does not conclusively resolve the issues, and does not predetermine future action. There is a robust presumption against appealability, and that's where I'm looking at it, chat. Kind of where I'm looking at it. So they keep going here. Under those standards, a TRO here plainly qualifies as a 2 TRO, other than a de facto preliminary injunction. It preserves the status quo that existed before the government's unlawful action. It does not foresee any further proceedings. It was issued in less than 48 hours with highly limited briefing and argument, and lasts only for a short duration, consistent with Federal Rule 65, while the district court engages in extremely expedited proceedings to address the merits. The government's argument for exception lacked merit. We're going to see here, chat. We're going to move here. So they say it shouldn't be treated as this because the court is not previously recognized, because it allegedly intrudes upon Article 2 powers. They say, of course, whether the president in fact enjoys an Article 2 prerogative to fire his counsel without cause is the core merit in the issue. In that respect, the government seeks to collapse the jurisdictional and merits inquiries, or at minimum, to leverage its merits into a basis for exercising appellate jurisdiction. And this is where I try to say, chat, this is where I think the court's going to have its hands tied. Remember, it's issue preclusion. We don't want to decide shit that we don't have to. Right now, it's focusing on the TRO. The problem is, and I don't think they're being honest about this, enough Article 2 blends it. Like, Article 2 is bleeding into this, and you can't, like, just do it. You can't just get rid of it, and that's a problem. And that's why I think the court's going to do a 50-50 thing. But like I said, I hope Mario's right. And I know Bronca said he hopes it's just like a complete, just cutting it all down. I don't know if they're going to want to do it. Appellate judges, and the Supreme Court is an appellate court. Appellate judges can be pussies. A lot. The court should reject that maneuver. And they say this lawsuit was filed 6 days before the government's application for emergency relief in this court. During that short period, the district court entered 2 orders. The D.C. Circuit decided 2 appeals. This court was asked less than 12 hours after the circuit issued its second opinion at 11:06 on Saturday, over a holiday weekend. Oh, it's so hard when you're a federal employee. It's hard out there, chat. It's hard to hurriedly pronounce on a major issue of constitutional law. To accept the government's petition would inevitably invite more of the same. The government cannot be clearer. It cites a series of recent TROs and asks the court to greenlight immediate appeals whenever such orders allegedly intrude on any of the president's broadly conceived Article 2 powers. Well, to be fair, there is a massive offensive of a lawful, and I would argue illegal and sanctionable warfare going on against the executive branch right now, and the judiciary has willingly let itself be co-opted and used as a bludgeon. So as the D.C. Circuit recognized, the government's position is a stark break from historical practice. Well, this whole thing is a stark break. All this lawfare is a stark break. They say we see no reason to incentivize more requests for 2-day rulings when the appeal for the injunction in the normal courts has heretofore been adequate to protect the interests of litigants, including the government, in the vast majority of cases. Fuck. Like I said, chat, they are fucking themselves over. They are fucking themselves over here. Oh, I hear 2.0 stirring. She just said somebody's a good boy. Clyde must be being a good boy. That's always good. And they say, moreover, they say at a time when emergency litigation is becoming more prevalent. Yes, because cocksucker commie judges like your ilk and your ilk down at the district court level are letting all this shit happen. And sadly, none of these attorneys are ever going to be sanctioned or punished for their obstructing the government. Don't worry. Don't worry. Shit'll catch up to them. Shit'll catch up to them. And they said, would risk deluging federal courts with emergency appeals litigated at a breakneck pace. Oh my God, it's kind of like that's already happened with emergency TROs. It's like there's 1 million of those pending right now. The self-unawareness, the self-unaware nature of this. Cases involving separation of powers and many other asserted Article 2 interests present greater, not lesser reasons for orderly judicial resolution. Such proceedings call upon the courts to address the fundamental architecture of our constitutional system. Well, so why don't we have an order? Why? Okay, it's a greater, not lesser resolution, but we need to speed it up. Well, no, you said we need to take our time. A TRO doesn't allow you to take your time. A TRO is my hair. A TRO is, oh my God, my hair's on fire. That's how you get TROs. Oh my God, my hair's on fire. Oh my God, the other party is going to liquidate money, or they're going to destroy assets. Or like I had a case where we had something getting filed. We had to freeze bank accounts so nobody could liquidate them. Those are things you get a TRO for. Irreparable harm. Yeah, is there a case charging him for seditious conspiracy? I think maybe. I'm just saying. Maybe there is. So further, they often arise in politically fraught context. I had not read this yet, chat, but holy shit. I can. We need to tighten up for a minute. The nerve of these motherfuckers. The nerve of these motherfuckers. The nerve. The nerve of these motherfuckers. No, this isn't. Oh no, I take it good. This is not stupidity. They know what the fuck they're. This is kind of like that Stolitsyn thing, in the Gulag Archipelago. They're lying. We know they're lying. They know that we know they're lying, and they know that we know they're lying, and they know that anyway, and they still lie anyway. They 100% know what they're doing here. This is 100% intentional. Oh. The fucking gall on these people. Fucking gall of these people. Like I said, that shit about Trump using DevGru to go do work. I'm just saying, we're kind of like, people are, you all want to fuck around. Maybe you really should have to find out. Who is paying these people is what I want to know. How are they getting paid? But if they wish for this type of warfare, they're going to get it in spades. They're going to get it in spades. They're going to get fucking DC-10 firefighter planes just dropping fucking tanks full of, fuck around and find out all over them. Like, I hope that happens. I might even send a letter to the president saying, it's like Vietnam. We need a Mike force of like Montagnards led by Green Berets, but instead we're attorneys, of just hatchet men who will come in as a QRF and just start fucking collecting scalps. Maybe that's what's needed. We'll be like drop potting in. We're like the ODST. We'll be a lawfare ODST, chat. Just right in the assault pods. Just right in the middle of the battle. Yes. Rally around the Emperor. Oh. I'm just saying. The premature adjudication of issues touching upon the structural separation of powers, like a TRO, especially when it occurs on an accelerated time frame, because you filed a TRO. Without full briefing argument, because you filed a TRO, and with an underdeveloped record, because you filed a TRO. Because you sought TROs. can provoke a destabilizing, harmful consequences. Because yes, you're catching on. You're saying the quiet part out loud. You are destabilizing the government. That's right. Feet first into hell, chat. We will descend like the Emperor's angels. Oh. Mario, you laugh, but I gotta drop. We'll drop pod in, buddy. We'll be on the same battlefield, brother. I'll sign you up too. We'll get Norm Pattis. Everybody will be coming in, and then we'll save the Frogman. We'll save him. Oh yes, for the Emperor. For the Emperor. There are generally good reasons why this court usually disfavors adjudicating cases in an emergency or interlocutory posture. Barrett dismissed a case of a certiorari, writs of certiorari before judgment is improperly granted. Kavanaugh says respecting denial of application for a stay. And then, for example, the government will presumably not seek certiorari if it convinces the district court just over a week to deny the preliminary injunction and grant summary judgment in its favor. Well, duh. If they win, they're not going to ask for anything because you lost. Why would you? And the court won't grant certiorari. You've won at the district court level. There's like the court. That would be retarded to seek certiorari after you win at summary judgment on a claim. No. I got summary judgment. No, Your Honor, I want an appellate court to review this. I haven't won enough. This is retarded. This is retarded. Like these guys make more money than me. These guys probably make 3-4 times the amount of money I make in a year. It's fucking disgusting. They actually put this in here, and that passed the straight face test. Of course, I'm not going to appeal if I win because the court agrees. This is bullshit. Article 2 overrides. Well, the Supreme Court's going to say, yeah, the district court asserted. This is, Maddie says 100K. You got too many zeros on there, 10K. Moreover, several justices have noted reservations about emergency requests being reviewed in administrative stay, which, much like the TRO, are supposed to be short-lived precludes to the main event. And a tool for minimizing harm when the court deliberates, like U.S.V. Texas. Notice Trump v. Hawaii is not here in this. These prudential and practical considerations also speak to this circumstance. They're talking about it's too soon. It's too soon. Well, why is it too soon? This is the fucking nerve of these people. My God, this is garbage. We got partway through it, chat, and it's just absolute garbage here. Every other consideration weighs against granting relief. So their argument fails here. They're not likely to prevail. They're saying, was it unlawful to remove him? They're saying it was not. They're saying, yes, it was. The government does not dispute that it violated the statutory limitation. Well, yes, but they're arguing it's unconstitutional. Instead, it advances two arguments. First, that the for-cause is unconstitutional. And second, that even if it's constitutional, the district court is powerless to reinstate its TRO. The government's not likely to prevail in either argument. Oh, I'd love to see. I'm waiting to fucking see this. As the district court in D.C. concluded, that contention falls to grasping significant features of the U.S.C. The Supreme Court has taken pains to carve the U.S.C. out of its pronouncements concerning the broad authority to remove officials who assist him in discharging his duties at will. And they say the cited cases do not hold that. Okay, well, which cases? And they say the application for a cause removal to the U.S.C. advances core statutory purposes, reflects an interbranch agreement, and poses no harm to Article 2 prerogatives. I don't really know about that. I would not. That's not correct at all. No. This is a destiny tier argument, by the way, chat. Destiny tier argument. I make $30 billion a year in calories, maybe. It's on my couch, apparently. Oh, but Chad, it's a hard day being a lawyer and then law explaining the interweb. It really is hard. It's tough some days, but I love it. I'm just like, fired up for it. Even the dogs are fired up. That was Laney barking, by the way, chat. And it says, this court's original pronouncement for cause removal limits is Humphrey's executor. Okay, and do you talk about seal of law in here? They say is relevant. First came seal of law. And they say that the court noted that for-cause limits for single agency leaderships are a relatively recent phenomenon and warrant closer scrutiny. They also stated Humphrey's executor is probably not good law anymore. Then it concluded that applying such protections to the director of the CFPB in particular raised exceptionally grave concerns in light of the director's power to issue final regulations, oversee adjudication, set enforcement priorities, and determine what penalties to impose. The authority to dictate and enforce policy for a vital segment of the economy and to do so without accountability to the president throughout real removal infringed on Article 2. Yes. Accordingly, the court held the president must be able to remove at will. In reaching this conclusion, the court expressly distinguished the OSC, which only exercises limited jurisdiction and does not bind private parties at all or wield regulatory authority comparable to the CFPB. Yes, and courts will distinguish. And remember, guys, we talked about this before. Courts try to limit. It's the issue preclusion. We're not going to say more than we have to. You're talking about X. We're talking about X. We're not going to talk about Y. But now we're on to Y. So, yes, let the hate. It's not hate. It's righteousness, chat. It's righteousness. Do not mistake the hate for righteousness. Because if God be with us, who could be against us? Yamal says sneed. Oh, I'm not sneeding. There is salt out there, chat, and this whole thing is just here's basically their argument, and I'm sure this is what they'll look like in court.
Ah, man! Check him out, y'all. He having the time of his life.
Pretty much, this is their argument. We're excited. Crack bite. Whereas seal of law removed the distinguished removal protections at the OSC, it cast in the doubt protections at the FHFA, which were stricken down 1 year later. Yeah, see, the court may talk about dicta and then move on. And hold on here, Chan, I need to see something. Hold on here. All right, hold on here, chat. Hold on. Sorry, we're back. Back to live TV, chat. All right. So they talk about where the limits are and what the limits are. They say taking together Humphrey's executor, which seal of law kind of says probably wasn't right. I'll support the continuity of the for-cause removal limitation. And they say that is true for two reasons. The special counsel is an inferior rather than principal officer. See, they called you inferior, Hampton. They said you're a bitch. They said you're a beta. Not really. It's an inferior officer, chat, not a principal officer. And the central reasons for invalidating the for-cause restrictions in those cases don't apply here. And they say it's been long settled that for inferior officers, Congress can limit and restrict the removal in the terms of the public interest. And they say whether assessing an officer's inferior or principal, the central question is whether he has superior other than the president. In this case, no, he doesn't. They say also the nature and scope duration of his duties. And they say understand the Office of OSC is an inferior officer. Congress is thus freer to set terms for his removal from office, but his role is limited but important. In essence, he's an ombudsman. And yeah, an ombudsman is a thing. And if you guys are ever in a hospital, you see that an ombudsman is somebody who helps resolve conflicts. You can report things to them. For example, when I go to the Cleveland Clinic, they own all the doctor's offices around here. You go get lab work done or whatever it is. They say if you're having problems, contact the ombudsman. That's who you go to. That's who you complain to. That's the manager. So they say they also talk about the merit the MSPB being involved, that he can work with them, the Merit Systems Protection Board, that he also may petition the MSPB to address it as a possible Hatch Act violation. But at that point, it's out of his hands. And guys, the Hatch Act is when you're campaigning on government time and government work. Government employees are not allowed to campaign. So people were shitting their titties raw over Elon wearing that murdered out MAGA hat, which I'm not going to lie, I might get one myself. I really like those murdered out MAGA hats, are dope. The black on black. Still nothing beats old red, but yeah. They say in these ways, special counsel is effectively supervised and accountable to the MSPB and other agencies where whistleblowers raise concerns. The special counsel does not engage in decision-making in any standard sense. Well, it sends stuff on. More importantly, the powers do not resemble the authority of the principal officers who lead the CFPB and FHFA. They say those guys wield the issue to issue final regulations, oversee adjudications, enforce penalties, initiate prosecutions, and determine what penalties to impose. The federal housing director can hold hearings, suspend corporate officers, bring civil actions, impose penalties, anywhere from $2,000 to $2 million per day. The special counsel has no such powers. Well, yeah, he's still got a lot of power, though. He still has a lot of fucking power. To argue he doesn't is a little bit ridiculous. They say, moreover, the for-cause removal provision reflects a heavily negotiated interbranch resolution that was embraced by President Bush when he signed the Whistleblower Protection Act and by his attorney general in cooperating to pass the bill. In fact, not one but two presidents, Carter and Bush, signed legislation with for-cause removal provisions at the U.S.C., making it clear any interstitial concerns that at the OLC had either been addressed or overruled and practiced by the Office of the President. I mean, are they now arguing because the president does it is therefore not illegal? Are they arguing that therefore because the president does it, it's not unconstitutional? Kind of a Nixonian argument there. Or are they arguing he who protects his country breaks no law? Because yes, just like Napoleon, Donald found the Constitution laying in the gutter and he plucked it out with the tip of his golf club. Obviously, Napoleon was the crown, but Trump is saving the Constitution here, chat. So, say finally the need of independence is unique because they should be free from economic regulation, should be free from specific forms of political action. And they say agency independence in those settings was designed to restrain the ability. They say here in contrast, OSC lacks regulatory powers, and the independence is afforded by its statutory for-cause provisions serves an entirely different function. Rather than hamper the president's agenda, its independence protects and assures whistleblowers. If the official charged from retaliation was himself utterly vulnerable to retaliation or removal for taking on politically charged or inconvenient cases, then the OSC's whistleblower protection might fail when it is most needed. Well, if it's really bad enough and what's going on, Congress can investigate and hold hearings. It can check and balance. It's got the power of the purse. If it's somebody they can impeach, they can impeach. If it's criminal, they can, they can, we've got actions available. But the idea of like, oh, well, gosh, we got no option here. It's like, no, you don't. And they say, simply put, Congress and two presidents agreed. Two presidents. So two presidents, chat. But you have going from Carter, Reagan, G.W. Bush, Clinton, W. Bush, Obama, Trump, and Biden, and now Trump. 2 out of 9, chat. 2 out of 9. 2 out of 9. 2 out of 9 presidents agree. That's their argument, chat. Imagine you're going to buy that. Imagine you're buying that. Imagine that advertisement. 2 out of 9 dentists agree. 2/9. Not even a third. More like, 2 out of 10. 1/5. Like, really? But imagine that. 2 out of 9 dentists agree. Do this. 2 out of 9 doctors agree. Their argument. We haven't even chat. We're kind of skipping around. Their argument is threadbare. They don't have any clothes on. They're very much, God, this is like, they may lose because they're making fucking awful arguments. Woo, child. Woo, child. Ugh. This is not looking good. This is not looking good. So this is getting interesting. Yeah. Woo, stalker child. I don't know. Oh. Like this is the thing, chat. When you're in this position here, and I think whoever's typed this up thought this was some hot shit Reddit tier take. They're like, ha, 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 ha. That's an own. They didn't stop to think. Like you really need to be. This is the thing when you're making arguments. You really have to make sure your argument doesn't expose you. I mean, you need to think about it, chat, when you're making arguments like you're a general on the battlefield. Like, you're like it's like a Kane. Oh my God, Hannibal's center's breaking. Advance! General, what about the flanks? Ah, fuck that shit. Advance! Oh wait, what are those Carthaginians around us? Oh no! 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 Oh no! Uh-oh. Oh no, I got a bad feeling about this, Roman bros. Oh, if you guys don't know, Cannae was famous for the double envelopment. The Romans came in, Hannibal at the center fall, and collapsed around them and surrounded them and slaughtered them. One of the first of many massive defeats for the Romans at the hands of Hannibal. Lake Trasimene, which was the second one in a row. Hannibal got away with it. Hannibal got away with it for a while. 15 intelligence agencies agreed. And yes, Mario's right. This is probably clever at 2 a.m. So, yes, there's also the Battle of Trebia. Yes. Yes, and then Hannibal ran wild all over the Apennine Peninsula. That's Italy for you who don't know that. The Apennine Peninsula was Hannibal's for quite a while. And they didn't Yamal says, I don't know, was Hannibal really so great? Yeah, he felted the Romans for like fucking years on end. And then the Carthaginian army was operating freely on the Italian peninsula. Yeah, pretty fucking good. But how can he serve as an independent watchdog if he's subject to removal at all times? Well, he suffer. Fucking suffer. But Hannibal did lose an eye. Yes, he did. I Take It Good says, actually, this is more like the second siege of Carthage, where the Romans let Carthage's own elephants defeat them. Yeah, well, yeah, I could see that. I mean, you could also argue it's like a Battle of Zama type thing, but I mean, this is very much a yeah. Anybody who thought remember when Napoleon says, if your attack succeeding, it might be an ambush. Be very careful when things are going perfectly. Sometimes that's what the enemy wants to. STP says, where did Hannibal get the elephant, Sean? I don't know. So anyways, we're going to keep going here. We're going to get to this, see what the last arguments are here, because this is kind of retarded. The remaining equitable factors cut against relief. Yeah, I don't know about that. The government cannot show that it'd be irreparably harmed. So far it has. The circuit held that the government failed to demonstrate the kind of concrete here and now irreparable harm. The government ceased to show otherwise by citing the transparently irreparable harm to the executive branch and the separation of powers. And they say this claim, like the government's jurisdictional arguments, confuses merits with irreparable harm. No, that's actually the problem is you guys have your actions, your TRO it all bleeds together. There is no cut where you could clearly separate the two. That's the problem here. Because it is a jurisdictional argument. And, it's confusing the merits with the irreparable harm. No, the irreparable harm is a jurisdictional thing. The irreparable harm is a merits thing. Like, you guys did this. You made a mud pie. It's not the government's fault they can't pick the specks of dirt out of it anymore. You made the mud pie, and now you're hiding behind the fact it's a mud pie. Or, chat, it's like baking a pizza. They threw the pizza in the oven. Now they're like, well, you can't pull apart the cheese. all those little pieces of mozzarella can't come apart. Sorry. But that's not how that works. You caused this. You induced this problem. This is your fault. You now don't get to hide behind the shield. You don't get to hide. So, Hannibal's doing great until he had to debate Destiny. Yeah. They say rather, they asserted democratic and constitutional interests will not be irreparably harmed by a short-timed limited order. Rather, it's only the resolution of the case on the merits, whether or not the order is stayed on appeal, that will affect those principles. No. Indeed, the government frequently asserts analogous interests while seeking stays. But even when it has cited core interest, courts have repeatedly declined to stay orders, finding they do not inflict irreparable harm. They talk about, State v. Biden. eBay Sanctuary Covenant. East Bay, sorry, not eBay, the East Bay versus Trump in 2018. Denying the stay of order that precluded the enforcement of immigration entry requirements. Yeah, and guess what happened with all those? The court's like, y'all fucking wrong. And Clarence Thomas said, you guys shouldn't do these goddamn TROs anymore. You've been warned. So, this gets done here. This is the funny thing is here, this argument, because I don't like, it's kind of like, I got news for you, what happened. But it says the government separately asserts a harm to democracy. Yes, democracy. Because the district court's order keeps an Office of Special Counsel a person who answers to no one and whom no one voted for. True. But as set forth above, the Special Counsel answers to the Merit Security Protection Board. The Merit System Protection Board. Yes, and to other agencies, officials. Guess what Trump did to the head of the MSPB? He fired her. Oh. Like I said, they've been collecting federal scalps this whole time. Mario's thinking this brief will persuade the three who don't matter. I don't think it'll persuade the three it needs to. I don't either. This is not persuasive. Here's the thing, though, Mario. I think at the end of the day, with a lot of this stuff, because I don't know if you heard me mention this before, the Supreme Court is like any court. They don't like lower courts stepping all over their terrain. And Thomas has said before, you guys are stepping into our jurisdiction with these nationwide orders. Stop doing it. Even Kagan, even Sotomayor, because she is the wisest of the Latinas. And even the great Ketanji Brown Jackson. Even them, I think, are going to say, no, you can't. This is our fucking turf. They are bureaucrats themselves in a way, too. They have turf they want to protect. So I don't think they're going to let the power go like that. But we'll see. So they talk about the TRO's pride in his ability to implement his agenda. Yes. But even the special counsel or principal officer, nowhere in his brief does the government identify any action or inaction the special counsel has taken that would result in irreparable harm to the president's agenda. And they say, given the president's obligations under the Take Care Clause is not apparent, the government could show irreparable harm from any lawful action by Counsel Dellinger to promote compliance with statutory protections for federal employees. Well, maybe they're not correct. Remember, he can act maliciously. He can act negligently. Am I tired of winning yet? No. I'm still not tired of winning. They say, nor does the government reconcile its broad assertions of harm with the limited authority here. They say, here it seeks to stay a TRO and must show irreparable injury. Yet it continues to fail to identify the harm. Yeah, I don't think they came out the gate swinging, chat, but they ran out of gas. Like, they had a good head of steam, but it's like at the tractor pull. They get going, but instead of keeping the front wheels on the ground, they got their front end up in the air. And when you do that, when you're pulling the sled at the tractor pull, you start losing power. You got to keep all your wheels on the ground. And they're not going to get a full pull here. They're not going to get what they need. Not going to get what they need. So, yeah. They say Special Counsel Dellinger is the presidentially nominated Senate confirmed leader of the agency, is by far the most legally secure leader of the OSC. Any confusion concerning his authority is due principally to the government itself, which removed him without cause. Well, now you're going to look like assholes by being dickheads. Now you know, like, how is it weird knowing how a tractor pull works? How is it weird knowing a tractor pull works? Like I said, chat, it may not look like it, may not talk about my upbringing, but I grew up in God's country, man. So, let me tell you what, I love a tractor pull. Oh. Nothing like going deaf and feeling your feelings rattle. When the harmonics on those engines going, you know if they have a bad second, it's going to explode. Running those V12s. Like 3 or 4 of them just running naturally aspirated. It's awesome. So it's in everybody's interest to clarify the leadership of the U.S.C. But the government is holding a big stone in a tiny glass house if it believes Dellinger is responsible for any uncertainty over the lawful leadership of this whistleblower protection agency. It's a big stone in a tiny glass house. You know, watch your fucking snark. Watch your fucking snark. Once again, this is some of the Reddit nonsense. They say the government has had ample opportunity to inflict concrete and irreparable harm on the TRO that maintains Dellinger in his office. Nevertheless, it continues to offers only abstract and non-specific interest. They say balancing the equities here. The government insists that counsel suffered no injury when he was unlawfully terminated, and he has no stake in the outcome in this proceeding, just to get paid. As the district court explained, any response from the government that counterintuitive position is mistaken. Simply put, Dellinger suffered will recognize cognizable harm from the government's unlawful conduct. What? What was his harm? What was his harm? And it's also a proper party to assert the substantial institutional equities of the OSC in preserving the independence necessary to its confidential whistleblower protection function. Yeah, somebody else could do that, not him. Not him. So they are asking for the stay to be denied. And there we are, chat. There was a response filed by Trump and the team. It's 20 pages. But they just point out basically, nuh-uh. And they say, that's not true. We may cover it tomorrow. Just not tonight. Just not tonight. Although if the order comes out, we'll deal with the order when it happens. So, we're all done, chat. We got a couple minutes. We got to get ready for PPP and Worski. So let's get going here. Blade 2.0, you were previously a member in the other stream, but you are here too. Can I explain to you that Jesus was just some guy? No, Jesus Christ is your Lord and Savior. The only way salvation can be obtained is through him. You must seek him and accept him. And he is always waiting for you. He loves you and he wants you to go to heaven. He wants you to be saved. He wants you to have salvation. He is not just some guy. He was not meant to be here on earth as the King of Kings. Not at all. Anyone tells you otherwise is spewing blasphemy and is leading you down a path to hell. Tim the Tool says, my paladin wields a +5 Humphrey's executor. I take it good, says, Nick Ricada told me I could ignore separation of powers. He says a lot. He says a lot. So, Duncan Idaho for $10 says, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's just not a TRO which is being appealed, but the ability of the judicial branch to issue a TRO for all this, which seems like the sort of thing the Supreme Court might address favorably. Yes, as we talked about before, the Supreme Court doesn't want them fucking around. Clarence Thomas even put it in Trump v. Hawaii. Quit fucking around. And the fact he wrote it, I'm sure at least 3 or 4 of them on the court agree. I'm betting it's probably 5 minimum. The idea of the TROs getting killed is probably like a 7-2, maybe 8-1 thing. 3 Beers gifted 5 subs. 5 subs. Also, real quick, Stacy said your Pope is ill. Good. We need a new one. He's fucking awful. But 3 Bears with 5 subs. Doing his part, chat.
Fight for the future.
I'm doing my part.
I'm doing my part.
I'm doing my part.
Everybody's doing their parts, chat. Chat, we're just making sure we get done in time here. Tracy Fagan is saying, why did a justice ask for the papers by today? Because it's kind of like, we got to go. We got to get our, it's kind of like Ludacris said, man, everybody got to get the roll on. We got to get a roll on. Lester Johnson says, Nick Rekieta told me I could come on the district court, Sean. How does that make you feel, bitch? By all means, come on these judges in D.C. They deserve it. Come right on their faces. Jonathan says $50 million for free atrazine for all the frogs. No, we don't want that. Kellen Miller, thank you for being here. I appreciate seeing you around. Lester, thank you for being here. Welcome to the show, man. Hope to see you around more. Kellen is saying, and also thank you for being here as well. Clyde knows more about the Bork than you ever will, Sean. That's true. He knows more about that Bork life than I ever will. I'm a fallible man. I'm willing to admit where I know I'm short. Tracy says, the justices need to say no and send all the lower justices or the courts to repeat constitutional law. I don't disagree with you, Tracy, but the King of Jerusalem almost immediately pointed out to you, if you've ever been to an elite law school's constitutional law class, to remember though, even in like some shitty 4th-tier toilet, like the University of Toledo, where Moi went to law school, those people went your law professors went to fancier law schools than you are at. So law schools all over America, because like most of teaching education, it's infiltrated by communists. This would be a fool's errand. This will be a fool's errand. The Supreme Court will have to become that fatherly figure and buck break the courts, sadly. They will be buck breaking them. So we'll see. We'll see. Yes, the Fighting Mudheads of Toledo, yes. Think it, sneed it, do it. One thing's for sure, girl, you gotta work. One thing to say, sneete. Oh. Tracy says, okay, here's a reason. You're connected to Hunter Biden. Well, there's that too, but yeah, that ship sailed. Debbie is saying that Donald John Trump exciting executive order terminating all taxpayer-funded benefits for illegals. Good. Yes. We're going to run into issues, though, because I don't know how the Supreme Court's going to have to overrule Plyer v. Doe. And Plyer v. Doe is a court case where, kids of illegals got schooling and resources. And that's a 1987 case, I think. The Supreme Court went along with. So, like, DOE, like doe, like, like a deer. Plyer v. Doe. Supreme Court's going to probably have to overrule that. I don't know if that's going to work. I don't know. I mean, if the Supreme Court, if this court is willing to put the torch to a lot of shit, I am all for it. I am all for it. But we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. If your dad is buck breaking you, you need to tell someone. Oh. Seller says Keno Casino's about to ambush me when memes content nuke premiere. Once again, this is the man. This is the man. I am not afraid of this man. I am not afraid of this man.
Like, look at that. Oh no!
Oh, now it's your face.
It went all over my keyboard. No.
What?
That's right, chat. It went all over his face and his keyboard. I'm not afraid from some man in Japan, some gaijin. I'm not afraid of the round eye in the land of the slant eyes. I'm not afraid of that man. He's not even a ninja. He doesn't know ninjutsu. He can't ninja vanish. He does not scare me. He does not scare me. He does not scare me. He's got nothing.
You're here because you got nothing. You got nothing in court. You don't got the bookkeeper. You got nothing. Nothing. And if you were a man, you would have done it now. You're here because you
got nothing, chat. He's got nothing. All right. But yeah, chat, I thought this was a lot stronger it was going to be, but after that reading that opinion, their motion or their response, like, fuck. We might actually get the Supreme Court felting people tonight. I thought the Supreme Court would split the baby, but God, if that's the best you can do is stomping on your dick like that, you're going to make it easy for him. Yamal says, thanks for the straight talk about appealing to TROs. You're welcome. I appreciate it. Thank you for being here, chat. NHL legend Bobby Hull had CTE when he died. Yeah, it's because they didn't believe in hockey helmets back then. They didn't believe in a lot of stuff back then. They didn't believe in face masks. Hell, it was controversial when the first goalie started wearing a face mask. All right, chat. Real quick, we got to get our sponsors tonight real quick. We've got the Dragon's Treasure, 10% off your teas, coffees, and soaps. Promo code criminal. MAF-arms.com, 10% off your wind chimes. Promo code POTCRIM. And Stoney's Bar and Grill, chat. That's right. Stoney's, serving Central Minnesota for 30 years as the best biker bar. Opened at 11 a.m. today. Tomorrow, chat's Thursday. Home of the $2.50 cans. Opens at 1 p.m. Chat. Opens at 1 p.m. Happy hour otherwise is 4 to 7. And get ready, chat, because Friday, it's got Grifton the Grifters. And then Saturday night, Julio Goldstein. Yes, that's right, chat. The Jewish Mexican will be there. So, guys, that's at Stoney's Bar at 1580 East Broadway Street in Rockville, Minnesota. All right, chat. Well, anyways, hey, Worski's getting a hold of me. We got to roll. So you're going to get the song for a couple seconds, and we're bouncing. So take care, chat. Have a great night. And remember, fuck this TRO. Fuck them all. And I hope it gets done soon. Good night. Take care, chat. Long live the Republic. Oh, where is it? Come on.
Weapons, blacksmithing, and models of planes, esoteric works, and even some trains. Much merriment had while drinking White Claws, tips on hunting, and even talking the law. Whatever you do, just don't talk to cops, even when they nab you on illegal stops. Just 'cause you did it doesn't mean you're guilty. But please talk to a local attorney. Was that the fat guy Rick hated yelled at? Why, yes it was, he even knows he's fat. For all this fun and more, there's one place to go. Here on Sean Martin's Potential